Make sure your insurance doesn't come up short. Get gap cover with ALA. For more information, follow the links in the description.
The last decade has not been good for a great many car manufacturers, and for those whose bread and butter was low-volume sports cars, it has been particularly difficult. But even amongst this, there have been few falls from grace quite as spectacular as that of a Lotus. For just 10 years ago, they were building stuff like this, the Evora GT430. Lightweight, focused, fun to drive. Sure, it had a few wonky bits about it and sometimes didn't work, but when it did, it was spectacular. A brilliant car at, by today's standards, a relatively sensible price and which gave buyers something genuinely unique. Today, they are a purveyor of overweight, overpowered, overpriced SUVs built in a nameless factory that are somehow even less reliable than this. But if you thought Lotus was dead, well, I'm happy to tell you that's not entirely true. In all of my time as an automotive journalist, I don't think I have ever met people quite as passionate as those that work for Lotus. And with all going honour to the company, a small group of them have got together to build for themselves the car they think the company should make, but for whatever reason just won't. And in today's video, they have given me exclusive access to share it with all of you. Welcome to a very different episode of JayEmm on Cars. Now, while my one true Lotus love will always be the Evora, I appreciate that for many people you say Lotus and they'll think either the Elise or the Esprit. And when it comes to the latter, there is one car in particular that everybody remembers. The iconic Series 1. Now, it may have all of the stiffness of a piece of damp bread and enough power to get a small to medium lawnmower up a relatively minor incline, but as soon as this popped out of the sea, Roger Moore behind the wheel, Barbara Bach sat next to him, this car drove straight into automotive immortality. This car will always be an icon, and there is nothing anyone can ever do to take that away from it. Even if I will admit I've never actually liked the Series 1 myself, instead having much more of a preference for the later Turbo Esprit of the 1980s. And even the most dedicated and diehard of S1 enthusiasts will tell you it is a car that you do really need to love if you want to own it. However, the factory themselves did acknowledge there was room for improvement, and so, over the next quarter century, they set about their iconic car, finally ending up with this, the Sport 350. Arriving at the turn of the millennium, underneath you will still find many components from the S1 of the 1970s, but now it had near triple the power, with 350 horses coming courtesy of a Lotus designed, developed and built 3.5 litre twin-turbo V8. It still had rear-wheel drive, but now with fatter tyres, performance numbers were up, and this was a car that took the fight to the likes of the Ferrari 360. Its original having gone up against the 308. So if ever you required proof that the Series 1 also did some stuff right, this is it. Knowing then just how closely related these two cars are under the skin, it would then be reasonable to think, I wonder what would happen if you were to take all of the advancements and improvements made from 25 years of development that you got in this and put it in the incredible, iconic Giorgetto Giugiaro wedge shape of the 1970s. Well, wonder no more, because that is what the people at Encor have done. This is the Encor S1. And I know what you're thinking. Another resto mod, hey? How much money do they want for this? £1 million? No, not quite. £500,000 they do want. More specifically, £430,000 plus VAT plus your donor car, which is any 1998 onwards V8 Esprit. of which there aren't exactly lots in the world, but there should be more than enough rotting on driveways, stuck at the back of garages with terminal issues to cover the planned 50-unit production run. Now, I also happen to think that the small team of just 10 people here at Encor are thoroughly insane for having taken this on. But this is no mere flight of fancy. There's some real, proper engineering expertise in this car. And all of the people behind it are real Lotus fans. I mean, let's face it, how many times have you sat down the pub with your friends and spent a good couple of hours moaning about the fact that all car makers have become involved in this insane arms race for power and speed? Particularly with the arrival of electrification, we are now seeing numbers that just 20 years ago were science fiction stuff. And the truth of the matter is that when it comes to 2-ton, 2,000 horsepower cars, they're too fast for the road and they're too heavy for the track. We found the sweet spot years ago and then just went straight past it. The Encor guys have demonstrated a surprising restraint in what they're doing. See, when it was new, this 3.5-litre twin-turbo Lotus V8 made 350 horsepower. But it was common knowledge at the time that it was capable of making at least 500 horsepower, if only the Renault gearbox attached to it could cope. And so, how much power does this car make? 500? Oh no. 550? Nope. 600? Nope. 700? No. It makes 400 horsepower, the same as a Ferrari 360. The weight, 1,200 kilos wet. And that's for now. The finished product may be even better. And to ensure the longevity of the powertrain, though this is indeed the casing of the original Renault UN1 gearbox, the internals are almost entirely new, built with components from companies like Quaife to take the power, the torque, and with a limited slip differential, meaning it should be a lot of fun to drive. And if, like me, you are very sad about the idea of cars like these being torn apart in order to create a millionaire's plaything, there's a couple of things I want to point out. First off, these cars were quite far gone. To have brought them back to good condition would have cost a small fortune itself. And all of the many parts that are not needed to build the S1 have been sold on to help other Esprit owners keep their cars on the road. So on balance, it's probably a net positive thing. More than that, to be able to do this, you have to start with an old car. If you were to try and build this from the ground up, well, it simply wouldn't pass current regulations. And it's not as if they couldn't have built this from the ground up. After all, it's not as if the chassis of an Esprit is a particularly complicated thing. You strip one of those cars down and this is what you'll find at the core of every Esprit, from the very first S1 to the last of line Sport 350. It is the Lotus backbone chassis, which then combined with a fiberglass body produced a car that was stronger than the sum of its parts. Many components are reused from this, including, of course, the chassis itself. There is no choice in that matter, as well as most of the suspension componentry. Certain parts are being replaced, but the reason for it is not just that they weren't good enough, instead because restoring them would cost more than replacing them. Lotus did a very good job in a lot of ways, and it is the mission of these people to preserve the brilliance of the original car, whilst giving it a little bit of modern-day magic. Like, for example, the body, now made all out of carbon fibre, which is both lighter and stronger. But more than that, it means they were able to erase the seam line of the original car, which is a really big visual difference. Now, because it is based on the original chassis, it still has the same proportions. It is almost the same size. Front to back, it's basically identical. It's just a little bit wider because the donor car was wider. They have preserved 17-inch wheels, and should you want, you can have them either as we have here on the VP1 or Some of the guys here prefer it in their original machine state, simply with clear anodizing on it, so you can see all of the little marks from the tool as it made that beautiful piece. There's a lot of modern wheels I just don't like, but these actually I love, which is kind of fun because they're based on the originals, which I really don't like. These simple yet elegant LED lights, front and rear, sit in a beautiful machined billet aluminium piece, which is not just gorgeous to behold, but also acts as a heatsink. And of course, they had to keep the pop-up lights. Maestro, please. Only now, they are 21st century specification. They sit lower for aerodynamic purposes, and I have to say, these I think are the best looking pop-ups maybe ever. These wing mirrors are 3D printed with carbon fiber infused plastic, including integrated LED side repeater and 360-degree camera. They've also been set in just the perfect position, so when you open the door, you've got just the right amount of clearance. As for the door handles, the button is in here. And an unintended consequence of the new motorized mechanism, when you do hit the button, even the handle inside moves for you. With two exceptions, this piece and this piece, all of the glass on the car is new. The front screen is now heated, and because of improvements in technology, it no longer requires a trim strip. At the back, they've done a similar thing with the rear screen, and it's little touches like that that help preserve the design ethos of the original, but bring the fit and finish into the modern era. Behind the driver, you will now find an engine which is permanently on display, and behind that, you'll find an actually fairly generous, if oddly shaped, luggage compartment. Just about one of the only things this particular car is missing is the tonneau cover, which production versions will have. And when I say this is no mere show car, I mean it. In just a few weeks, this thing is going out testing. And this video is being put out more or less the day I film it. It's a few weeks to go till Christmas now. So these guys are passionate, not just about delivering their car, but also making sure it's usable in all conditions. And now, the interior. Historically, not much of a Lotus strong point. But here, it's the highlight of the car for me. The materials are beautiful, from leather to Alcantara with gorgeous stitching and not a bit of cheap plastic in sight, with the sole exception of the original type door handles here, which I actually kind of like. I adore them. The guys here have been debating as to whether they keep them or not, and I actually think they should stay, but maybe just be refinished. The grab handle strap here is beautiful. All of the exposed bolts I think are wonderful. I don't even mind the tartan. It's not my kind of thing. I'd have it spec'd slightly differently. And I absolutely adore the fact they have paid tribute to the original wraparound spaceship style dash of the S1, but of course with a modern update. Now, it's powered by a bespoke system which actually works very well on account of the fact that the guys behind this have also supplied screens and systems to some very large automotive manufacturers that I can't tell you about. Suffice it to say, though, this is actually a better looking and more responsive system than in quite a few other cars that are made in much greater quantity. It is currently touchscreen only, but there is a little dial down here, which by the time these are in production, will work and operate iDrive style. I did say to them I thought they'd want a few more physical controls, but I think the decision has been made. It is worth pointing out these voxel indicator stalks, as you'd have seen on the Esprit, but also in Elise. They will of course be doing bespoke, nice, beautifully made ones, and the same goes for the pedals, which are currently just placeholder ones. The wooden gear lever over here actually sits quite proud, which means it looks a little odd, but it's very close to the steering wheel. The seats in here have a little bit too much padding for taller drivers like myself, meaning I can't actually see all of this dash. However, that's already something that they are working on. As you might imagine, every single one of these is being built bespoke for its customer. Now, one other thing I know people might be sad about is the fact that this car now has an electronic handbrake. But the reason for that, first off, in the regular car, it's a fly-off, it's down here, and it's in a slightly weird place. Secondly, because of where it is, the sill is quite narrow. By getting rid of it, not only could they make the sill much bigger, therefore giving the car extra rigidity, but they could also fill in a hole in the back of this. Oh, and when it comes to details, this bulkhead here, even in the Sport 350, it's plywood. Now, it's carbon fibre. Just one of many small details, meaning when this car does get driven, it should be quite good. And to ensure that, it's also got Öhlins dampers, a bespoke geometry, has taken, of course, all of the learnings of the Sport 350, retains those 17-inch tyres, meaning they're going to be aiming for a ride quality which keeps that beautiful Lotus suppleness, but gives drivers the response and the tautness they expect of a modern-day sports car. As for the soundtrack, well, I'm not quite sure yet. I haven't heard it, and there are clips online of plenty of Esprit V8s, so if you want a clue, go and listen to one of those. Suffice it to say, the exhaust has not been overlooked. And I've got to say, the depth of engineering in here is beautiful. Even extends to little things like the fact that there are no vents in here anymore. Instead, all of the air comes through the gap down here. I got to admit, I still remain dubious, but as for the credentials and the effort, that's impeccable. I suppose I should consider myself lucky that the team here didn't choose the slightly later Turbo Esprit as the basis for this. Because if they had, I'd currently be looking at just how much you can get for a kidney on eBay. Fortunately, the S1 has never been my cup of tea. But for 50 well-heeled individuals out there, I suspect it might be, and they have already sold a number of them. They've got other projects in the pipeline too, but they won't tell me about those just yet. However, as far as starts go, I think they're off to a pretty good one. I still think they're insane, but I still wish them the very best of luck, because I don't know about you, I've had enough of Porsche resto mods. The world needs this. Anyway, from me, and so thank you for watching. A big thank you, of course, to the team at Encor for having me out. Don't forget, hit the like button, comment down below, tell me what you think, and what you'd maybe like to see them revisit next, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.